All right. Well, so our next topic is going to be the Walt Disney Company's quarterly earnings that dropped yesterday. This is a doozy. So Hollywood Reporter is saying here Disney crushes Wall Street expectations. Disney Plus soars to nearly 130 million subs. Disney Plus added 11.8 million subs last quarter to hit 129.8 million total. Hulu nabbed 6.6 to reach 45 million. Real quick, I just want to say here that just read this paragraph real quick. The Walt Disney Company beat Wall Street expectations in its latest quarterly earnings report. The company reported revenue of $21.8 billion and net income of $1.1 with earnings per share $1.06. So I'll start with Dre. Dre, what are your thoughts overall in regards to this earnings report? Oh,
you're mute again. You're mute.
See. I'm glad you guys pointed that out. I do apologize, guys. I'm so frazzled by the day. We only had I had a very short time to prepare today, and my mind's just going nuts, going crazy. So I really do apologize about that. But this is some really, really interesting stuff, right? And it's interesting on multiple levels. The rumor was to the investment world that this quarterly earnings report is going to be really, really good, really, really good, really, really good. And we saw some predictions out there, but this did actually blow away even the kind of larger expectations that Wall Street had for this. So I believe they were saying that they might hit $22 billion worth of revenue, or maybe like $21 billion worth of revenue, and they actually hit $22 billion worth of revenue, which is just massive. Also, too, they really they really exceeded expectations when it came to their subscriber numbers. I believe they were estimating about 8 million in new subscribers, and they actually hit 11 million new subscribers, which is massive. And obviously that's going to be due in part to Book of Boba Fett and Hawkeye actually coming out in that quarter. And it's job well done for sure. I will say though, some of this is a little, and as we alluded to in our Book of Boba Fett segment, some of this is a little bit by design, right? Obviously, these shows were selected to premiere in that date. Maybe these shows could have actually been stronger had they been given more time, but c'est la vie, this is where we're at. And we look at this earnings report and we see 100% increase in Parks and Resorts revenue from, I believe, maybe like 3.5 billion to, I believe, over 7 billion, if I'm not mistaken. 7.2 billion, right?
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, okay, that's good, but obviously, an entire domestic park, resort was closed, right? And that impacts that earnings statement a lot. Also, too, we had a lot of the 50th anniversary items kind of placed on hold until October 1st, which happens to be when this quarter actually starts. So we get Harmonious, we get Ratatouille, we get things that were ready for a long time before that actually debut at this time. So we also got the premiere of Genie Plus at around this time as well. So it's all these things that kind of that maybe make this look to be as good as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. The 11 million subs for Disney Plus really surprised me because, Disney had a pretty lackluster showing for Disney Plus last quarter with only 2 million, which is pretty much, that's not even barely an increase. It's pretty flat. And then to go from that to 11 million, I tell you, it's the power of Marvel and Star Wars. That's right there, between Hawkeye and Boba. It's absolutely wild, absolutely wild. George, your thoughts on just overall thoughts on this earnings report?
Well, at first I have to actually say to the naysayers that say, people aren't going to Disney because it's too expensive or what have you, that this just goes to show you that really, honestly, no matter the price tag, people are still going. The parks right now are at a pretty high, capacity as far as like for the wait times and what have you. But just for the overall, I mean, I'm actually impressed with the numbers. I think this is a good start to the road moving forward, especially coming out of, the mess that, the whole world has been going through for the past 2 years, with the pandy and the shutdown and everything, and getting, revenue back up. So I think that, they're not obviously 100% there yet, but this is definitely a step moving forward in the positive way that I think as time goes on, especially when, as far as like with the parks go, with Cosmic Rewind and Tron and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opening in Toontown, I think like it'll just keep progressing. And then with Disney Plus, with the Obi-Wan series and more, coming out with Marvel and what have you. And I think that this will projectile into of what Bob Chapek was saying for the next 100 years. And I think it would even skyrocket even more that, again, if Bob Chapek uses the expo to his advantage to be able to kind of showcase everything that's supposed to come out with Disneyland Forward and the future of, the other parks and with Disney Plus, I really think that they can come out of the stagnant of this.
Right. Well, and you mentioned a good point, George, in terms of like it being expensive, but people are still flocking to it. And that's a good point, because I feel like, and I've been saying this for a long time, it's a vote with your wallet thing, and a lot of fans don't do that. A lot of fans, they complain on social media. It's this, that, and the other, but they still end up going. Disney will continue to charge high prices and raise prices as long as people are willing to pay them. If I have a lemonade stand, right, and I'm charging $7 a glass for lemonade, and I have a line around the block, people lined up to get my lemonade for $7 a glass, I have zero incentive to lower the price. Zero incentive. And Disney's in the same boat. And until those numbers start to drop off and people stop coming, the prices will remain. That's just the way it is. And then,
well, I have to say, OG, that if you're selling lemonade for $7 a cup, I want that recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean that's really the case. I think that it's a tough call. But Dre, what are your overall feelings on like just the park stuff in particular? I mean, any thoughts on? I know the Genie. I did a video on Genie Plus earlier, things like that. Any musings in regards to just the park?
A couple thoughts on this, but I want to clarify for people that we do come at this from a very kind of parks oriented perspective, right? And that there are many facets to the Disney company. What us as park fans might complain about and might, kind of look at the company through that window or that filter or perspective is maybe not representative of the entire picture at the Disney company. I see a lot of people, they blame Chapek for this, they that. You look into their profiles, they are very much parks people, whereas other areas of the company are actually doing, a lot better as that prioritization shifts in those directions. And so I kind of want to, make that distinctly clear for people, because, some people, they get like, well, really, is Chapek doing that bad? He's doing this, this, and this, and this. It's like, oh, yeah, because we're talking about it from a parks perspective. But again, the parks are the moneymaker. They are the driver right now in terms of revenue. They might not be the driver in terms of the stock price, obviously. I think we can clearly say that that's Disney Plus and the subscriber number that is really, really, you have Wall Street and investors and shareholders really hinging their bets on. But when it comes to parks, they are very important. So I just want to kind of get that out of the way. When it comes to demand at the parks, I will have to disagree with you fellas a little bit, simply because I think this demand I don't think it's representative of the great product that Disney's maybe offering. I think a lot of it has to do with, hey, people weren't able to maybe spend their, kind of Christmas season at the parks back in 2020, right? 2021 afforded a very different, distinct opportunity for a lot of people to spend their vacations, whether it be at Disneyland or Walt Disney World. And so when we see this kind of increased demand, it's kind of artificial in my view, just based on kind of market conditions and market forces. And unfortunately, the practices that I'm seeing right now aren't necessarily sustainable for the long haul. I mean, my feeling is this. I liken this to, racing at the Indy 500, right? You're on lap 350, you haven't gone for a single pit stop, and you're feeling great about yourself, right? But at the same time, while you might have a substantial lead, you're doing things that, it's a short-term gain, long-term loss kind of thing. And I don't even know if they're going to finish the race, much less win it, if this kind of keeps going forward in this direction. I look at this and I go, you capitalized on increased demand. You capitalized on the fact that this kind of pandy happened. You did all this stuff. Can you do it again? Can you do it again? Can you do it again? And I don't think you can at this level. Now, I am encouraged that we're seeing like the trams come back. Interesting timing on that announcement. We're seeing, World of Color kind of get ready. We're seeing Phantasmic kind of get ready. Like, those things are encouraging. But I mean, let's just be honest. The parks have never cost this much and have offered so little in exchange, in return. And I just worry that they might be encouraged by these numbers to continue that. We saw the 50% number for Genie Plus, and it's like, oh yeah, this is great, this is awesome. My feeling is 50% of people are opting into a service that's supposed to skip the line. That's not great for anybody, including the people who paid for it, including the people who are on the outside looking in, and even the operators themselves. I mean, think about it. These rides have a set capacity. And when you have 50% opting in, and by the way, that's like the average. They were saying that maybe it dipped down to as low as a third throughout the quarter, or maybe it was even higher than 50%. When you're getting these kind of numbers, I mean, it stops becoming a service for people if so many people opt in. And they've done things to encourage this use and make it almost a mandatory for anybody going to Walt Disney World. And I just look at it and I go, this is just not sustainable. I was hearing reports of cast members when they were at these high levels or high adoption rates for Genie Plus. And, usually with Fast Pass, it was about 80-20, right? 80 guests until the next 20 guests for Fast Pass and so on. They were doing like 99-1 at some points. 100 guests before one standby guest is let through. 99 Lightning Lane guests before one standby guest is let through. That's insane. That's crazy. And yes, it is encouraging. Yes, we do want to see the company do well. I want to see the company do well, but I also want to see them do well the right way as well.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Let me ask you this, Dre. Now, because you actually touched upon a point that made me kind of think about it a little bit. Of what is going on right now, primarily in California, where they are going to be starting the removal of the mask mandate for indoors. Now, not knowing exactly what's going to happen as far as like Disneyland's decision upon February 16th, it'll be solely up to them.
Right.
Could that then boost a higher projectile of people going, not necessarily because of the popularity of Disneyland, but because it becomes a psychological thing of people saying, oh, this whole entire time we've had a mask mandate. We have to wear a mask on rides in the shops and what have you. So when you go and remove that and people say, oh, we could then go back to our norm, could that benefit into the factor of having a higher positivity rate to just that alone?
Oh, yeah. They will get increased demand when that mask restriction is removed. I very much do believe that. I actually heard these things to the effect. OG, you pointed out a great point that we can get lost in our groupthink right? That when we talk to park guys so much, or other Disney fans, that we kind of get encased in this bubble, and that's why I always try to attempt to kind of reach out to people who have no association with this Twitter or anybody else like that. I just want a general audience's thoughts on all of this stuff. And I had that unique opportunity at the resort I was staying at this past winter season, as some of you have seen, right? At that resort, I was able to encounter a lot of people who were very well-to-do business owners, restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, people who had maybe upper class or middle, upper middle class incomes and stuff like that. And I was able to kind of get a sense of what would be Disney's prime demo, right? I mean, they want every single one of these people to be booking reservations for the parks, right? And quite a few of them, I asked about, kind of masks and how they felt about them. And they were kind of apprehensive about the prospect of actually going to Disney simply based on that. Now, there were other issues that they had issues with, but that was definitely a high, a reason in their list of reasons as to why they were not going at that time.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I think you'll get a boost from that. Absolutely, they'll get a boost from that. Dre, you mentioned an interesting point about sustainability. Kind of like this idea of like what you were talking about. Short-term gain. Short-term gain, but at the expense of the long term. And that's fascinating to me. That's fascinating. And that's going to be that's a big question mark. We just don't know, what's going to happen. But that's interesting because, guests going to the parks and, having these experience, maybe not so great experience, stuff like that. What does that mean for someone? Look at John Campea. We're fans of John Campea, right? Mm-hmm. If you watch Campea, his Disneyland trip was infamous this past summer. We did a whole show about it. It was epic rants about how he's never going back. And I think he's maybe an extreme case. I don't, but I think that, hey, stuff like that does happen. Yeah. And when, you go to the parks and, the Genie Plus stuff is going on, and when you're in standby and you're waiting, 10 times longer because they're letting more of those Genie Plus people in, it does ruin the experience for some, and it's possible they're losing customers. Now, the issue with a lot of this stuff, like the paid fast pass and things like that, is that there's really no alternative, because all the parks now offer that stuff. So it's not like you could even say, well, I'll go to this park because they have it too. But
that is true. No, and I completely agree with that. I do agree that this is kind of the route that they were going, but at a $15 price, it might be a little bit too accessible to really kind of leverage the benefits of the service, just simply because too many people are on it, right? They probably need to increase this price if they are going to stay with this program, maybe even twice or three times. I mean, to really make it so that the people who are getting it actually getting a good value, and it doesn't impact the standby nearly as much.
And I'm going to see that for myself in June, because especially with the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, because I feel like those are the two parks that people would use Genie Plus the most. And since we're doing 3 days per park out of those two, I'm actually going to test myself by doing a day by using Genie Plus, and then a day to just use the standby lines, regardless of what the wait time really is, because I've been getting a lot of mixed reviews on it where people are saying, oh, it's beneficial to use Genie Plus. But then there are people that are saying that Disney is kind of quote unquote fibbing when you go into the standby line, where it's an astronomical wait time, but then it's really not by the time they get through, and they actually time themselves. So I'd like to actually see that for myself, of what's really accurate as opposed to what's deceiving.
Well, and here's the thing too. Disney's dealing with a potential, I don't think it's fully class action yet, but a potential class action lawsuit brought on by Magic Key holders in regards to the blockout date.
I mean, it's filed.
Yeah, it's been filed.
No, it's filed. Yeah. When I was reading that from the actual documents, those are public documents because they have been filed with the court. So it is filed. It's just, will a judge actually take it up? Will it throw it out? That is in question, but that lawsuit is still pending.
Okay, so they already have that, pending, with because of the wording and all that, the misleading. A lot of key holders are saying it's very misleading. I wonder what's going to happen when it comes to the wait times. Because if Disney is actually inflating the wait times to kind of corral people into their paid service, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not. Believe it or not, I'm not a lawyer. But I would think, from a layman's perspective at least, there might be something there with that.
And I will agree with you. That's why that language is actually there in the app. It says wait time shouldn't be used as a reason for, for buying into the service or something to that effect. And it's like, okay, so they know that this is potentially exploitative, right? And it goes beyond even just wait times. We saw, I was trying to find the Twitter post, I couldn't find it, but somebody actually posted the fact that, Radiator Springs Racers, right? It is the #1 attraction DCA. It is the rise of that park, right? And it full demand, and even Disney kind of values it as such because you have to pay an individual lightning lane just to get on it when you're at DCA. And somebody actually posted on a Saturday, mind you, while the park was packed, that they were only loading a portion of the cars that were available. Now, I have never seen that ever. I have never seen not all of those lanes actually be full of cars for guests to actually ride. And it was either one down or two down, but it's like, okay, that right there is exactly what I was talking about when it came to the efficiency problems that we had projected in earlier shows. I said, well, the incentive now is to not be as efficient as possible. The incentive now is to short that efficiency. Go ahead, George.
No, I was just going to say, so now if that was the case as to why these numbers are with the quarterly earnings, that is kind of Disney playing on that fine line of being kind of, and I hate to use this term, a little bit two-faced, because you're then utilizing that system rather than to help guests, but to just squeeze every dollar out of them just so we could say, oh, we can go high and above for this quarter. Yeah, see, if that's the case there, then I definitely agree with you where Disney has to watch in the long term, not just what is going on right in front of them.
I know we have a hard out. I just want to get 2 points and I'll shut up for the rest of the show. I know I've been talking a lot, but I'm extremely passionate about this stuff. Good. 2 things. One is, us as Disney fans, yes, obviously, we're a very loud vocal minority, right? As far as sway goes, we don't have much of it. But I will say this, we are also one of the biggest advocates to actually visit and go to these parks, right? We evangelize to our friends, we evangelize to our family, to actually go to these parks and experience them. And when goodwill is lost in so many ways, well, then maybe our advocacy to actually go to these parks is dimmed a little bit. So we do have effects these ways. I can just tell you right now, I have a friend who has never gone to Disneyland ever, and she's going for her first trip very, very soon. And I got to be honest, I really don't know what to tell her, because I kind of know all of this stuff in advance, and I don't know how to tell her. You might want to set aside $40 per day just to have this Genie Plus service, because without it, you're just not going to have maybe the best trip possible. And one last anecdote: there's a YouTuber, I forget his name, but he's like a cruiser, right? He's from Canada. All he does is cruise. He's going on a cruise every single week. That's his whole channel. That's his whole shtick, right? And he was talking about how he was planning to go to Walt Disney World like he had in years prior, right? Like, he really does love Disney. And he actually canceled his cruise. I'm sorry, his visit to Walt Disney World.
Wow.
Because of all these different practices. Even he had noticed, that's the international tours, by the way, which during the quarterly earnings report, they said that was made up 20% of annual visitation. And that was a big part of who was missing, post Pandy. And this person who was going to go to Walt Disney World is not from Canada because of what we're seeing right now. So Disney, if you're watching this, you can have your foot on the pedal for so long. but you
Be
can't
careful.
outlast physics, right? A wheel, like my Indy 500 anecdote earlier, a wheel is gonna burst eventually, right? It's just you're gonna have a blowout, no matter how strong that tire is. And in the same case, no brand is indestructible, no matter how much you perceive it to be. So that's my piece.
And we
Yeah.
saw that in the very beginning of the pandy, because a lot of people thought it's Disney, it can't be touched. We'll have it forever. Well,
No.
1 year later with Walt Disney World and almost 2 years with Disneyland, it's like,
No company is invincible. And that was my big concern with the lockdowns, because a lot of the fans were saying, "Oh, Disney can afford it. It can be closed down indefinitely forever or whatever, and I was like, "No, it can't. Like the company cannot survive that."
well, and especially
have
after
to
70 billion of stock that went into Fox shortly before.
I know. And that was thanks to Daddy Iger,
Yeah.
and that was right before the pandy,
Right before
the
the
pandy hit.
Yep.
This was a fantastic conversation. And Dre, I just want to say, you never have to apologize for your passion, brother. I absolutely love your passion. And I really want to have, because I know we have a hard out, I really want to have you guys on again soon, because we can even do a part 2 on this if you guys want, because there's so much to sink
I think
into.
it's appropriate. Yeah.
We'll do a part 2.